Pearson.
All right.
Yeah, so yeah.
Good. And were you able to work also on the quizzes or only the assignments so far?
Only the assignments. I haven't taken the quizzes yet.
All right, that's good. Just remember that the quizzes are going to be a little bit longer, but I think you're going to have the time to finish those, right? And the final test is just a little bit longer than the quizzes. So the quizzes are going to be 25 to 30 minutes. The final test is going to be, right, tops, it would be like 40. But that's it. Okay, so if you're good with Pearson, then we are also good with the course itself. We have 2 more lessons to cover, and as I'm sharing my screen with you now, because it's already streaming, let me share my screen. Okay, and my camera. All right, so let's begin. Let's first finish the lessons that we have for today that are, again, very simple. At least the ones related to articles, that's going to be something that I believe we don't need to see. Tag questions just to practice the tenses in general. It can be a very good way to practice tenses. So when you read tag questions again, Matilde, what comes to your mind? What are tag questions?
When you say a sentence and for confirmation you end up with something like didn't you, or haven't you, or have you, yeah, these kind of questions.
Great, good. So you know that one. So we are only going to perhaps once again reinforce, but what rules do you know? What rules do we have to use tag questions?
If you are saying an affirmative sentence, you have to make the question in the opposite way, just it's a negative. So, you know, you have done that, haven't you? So you have to exchange that, as far as I remember.
That is correct. It's always going to be like the opposite, right? The other way around. Affirmative, negative. Do we use nouns in the tag question or only pronouns? What do you say? For example, is it possible to say didn't Luis or didn't Matilde?
I think I haven't heard this kind of.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, because actually it's not something that works in that way. At least grammatically speaking, the recommendation is to work with pronouns, right? To make it like a short question. So yes, we're only going to work with pronouns. That's why you're saying, right? It's something that we don't hear because it's not common. It can be there, but it's also not acceptable in grammar. All right, so again, you got that. Perhaps it's going to be again shorter than I thought. So we're going to have some extra practice. So tag questions, we know the definition. We're going to skip this part. I would like to go to this one. But let's try to work on some ideas before showing you actually that in detail. Let's try to do something. Okay, I'm going to give you an idea and you tell me what's the question for that one. Okay, it's very simple. For example, if I say she's had, all right, she's had a great day. What is the tag question for that one? She's had a great day. A great day.
Hadn't she?
All right, we're going to analyze. If we say she has lots of friends.
Hasn't she?
All right, and if we say she hadn't been happier.
Had she?
All right, okay, so let's analyze. In the first one, it was, right, she's had well, I added a compliment. Let's say I'm going to change that one. She's had a great day. Okay, that's it. So you say had, right? But what would it be?
She. You said
She's.
she had. You said she's had.
Correct.
Okay, so it's is there, so isn't she?
Okay, close. But if we use the verb had,
Has. Oh yeah, she has had. Oh yeah, right. Hasn't
right?
she? Yeah.
Hasn't,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Then in the second one, it was right. She has lots of friends. And then you said, hasn't she? So do you still agree with that one, or what would it be?
She has lots of friends.
Yes, she has lots or a lot of friends.
Yeah, that should be hasn't she? Hasn't she?
All right, in a certain way, yes, we can accept the negative of have as need just by adding an apostrophe T, right? But being strict in grammar, if we have she has, and that's the main verb, that's simple present, so the negative of has is not going to be hasn't, right? It's going to be doesn't have, right? Because the negative, if you want to say that in negative, it would be she doesn't have lots of friends, right? Because we usually use the contraction in negative hasn't, and again, this is mainly because of grammar. When has or have, when both of them are the auxiliary of your idea. For example, in number one, right? She has had a great day. In that case, has is auxiliary of had because it's the present perfect, right? And as the auxiliary, you can use the auxiliary in the tag question, right? So that's the third rule you can say. The first, if it's affirmative, the tag question is negative and vice versa. Then we always use pronouns. And the third would be, that we're going to see now, that we have to use the auxiliary, right? So again, if I ask you, what is the auxiliary? Let's talk about future. I don't know if you know that one, but what is simple future? And what do you think is the auxiliary of the simple future?
Like for will, you say?
Yes, because it was actually simple future is will, and the future would be going to is just called future would be going to. So will, right? So in most of them, it's going to be very obvious. What about the present perfect in the first example? What are the two auxiliaries in the present perfect?
That would be, I mean,
In
like in
she
the
has
first
a
example,
great day.
she has had, yeah. So the auxiliary that it's have, I mean, it has the has part.
Exactly. It's have, and the possible variation has for third person, right? Good. What about past perfect? If we say, right, she had been or she hadn't been happier, right? In number three, what is the auxiliary in that one?
It should be had. I mean, the auxiliary, it's have again. She hadn't been.
Had, right? Had, because in that case it's past, so had, exactly. But if we say, I have, right, I don't know, a lot of friends. So what is the auxiliary in the simple present?
I have a lot of friends. Oh yeah, I get it now. Yeah, have, it's the verb, not the auxiliary. So
So it would be,
yeah.
you need the auxiliary, right? And the auxiliary is for, it's just one, but as you said, the variation is does, right? So the two auxiliaries for the simple present are, well, do, and the variation does. So in the sentence, she has lots of friends, it would be, she doesn't have, right? So the tag question would be, doesn't she? Right? Okay, so that's the only thing. That's the thing that, right, creates a lot of confusion, because have can be auxiliary in two different tenses, but have is also a verb. Okay, that's why have can be confusing. The only one. Let's take a look at that very quickly. Let's read these examples to understand what auxiliaries we use in each tense. Let's read, please.
Okay. Present simple be, she's Italian, isn't she? Present simple other verbs, they live in London, don't they? Present continuous, we're working tomorrow, aren't we? Past simple be, it was cold yesterday, wasn't it? Past simple other verbs. He went to the party last night, didn't he? Past continuous. We were waiting at the station, weren't we? Future simple. She'll come at 6, won't she? Models. He can help, can he?
All right, there you go, right? Very simple. Again, the only confusion can be with that particular word, but here this is the same. We're not going to read this. If then we have a negative idea at the beginning, as you said, the tag question is going to be affirmative, right? So this is what I was telling you, right? We have to be careful with the present perfect. These are examples in the present perfect, right? You have traveled, she or he hasn't read, she has been, or they haven't been, right? And in all those cases, we just use haven't or hasn't. And these steps, right, that we were talking about, first, if it's affirmative, negative, and so on, then we have to recognize the tense, and this is important. I told you, the auxiliary, right? We need to recognize, mainly for simple tenses, can be confusing, not every time, but sometimes. Then you set the auxiliary in the opposite form, and then we change any possible pronoun to, or sorry, any possible noun to a pronoun, right? So Luis turns into he, and Mary becomes she, right? And these are important things to take into account. Then I have something else here, but I'm going to show you that later. So very simple rule. If we see the verb to be, that's the only thing we have to use. But if we don't see it, we have to be sure if the auxiliary is mentioned in the affirmative and negative way. If not, we have to be careful as with third person and in the simple present or even the simple past. All right, so after that part, again, if you get to have any questions, let me know. But I have a couple for you. For example, there are exceptions, right? And you must know, I believe that you must know one of them. What exceptions do you know for the for tag questions? I mean, sometimes it's not just using the auxiliary because it's not possible for a certain reason, or the auxiliary is not the same as the thing that you're mentioning in the first part, because there's no auxiliary and you have to use a different word, right? I don't know if you know a rule for the present with be. There's one exception. What is that one? Do you know about it?
I don't, honestly, I don't know. It doesn't come up in my mind.
All right. So if this is the idea, all right, I am your friend, okay, I am your friend. What's the tag question for that
one? Okay, for like when you're asking for yourself, it's for the
yes.
I. That's,
and when you say I am, right? But we know that we cannot contract am with negative. It's not possible. And here we have to contract. So what do we do? What is the tag question for I am your friend?
Am I?
Close. It can be. Sometimes it can be related to the same way in affirmative as well. But actually, they are going to tell you that you have to borrow, all right, a verb or a conjugation, and you're going to use the conjugation of plural. So it's the only time in which you're going to say, aren't I? Okay, aren't I? So you can also say in the affirmative way, what you say is correct. But if you want to keep the rules and even play with grammar, aren't I? Okay, that's one. Now I'm going to show you because there's a list in this presentation. But what about imperatives? What is the tag question for an imperative? If I say, do your homework, what is the tag question?
I mean, it's a bit weird.
And it's because you know that it's weird, and it's an exception because you know that the imperative actually doesn't have a tense, right? Imperative is just an order, and it's
Yeah.
that, right? It's not in present, past, future, but it can be related to present and future. But remember, there is a word, a special word that you can use for offerings, but also for refusals and many other things. This can change a lot. That is the word will. Okay, so will is the auxiliary that you're going to borrow to use a tag question for all imperatives. All right, and you're going to see that in a moment. And what about, this is the last one, what about a suggestion with let's? There's a word that it's similar, very similar to let's, but is used in questions instead of statements. So what do you think is the tag question for let's go to the party? It is a word that is not used very often, very used nowadays, but it is similar to let's, but in interrogative form.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, probably when I hear it, I will remember it.
All right. Yes, it's
It
shall. All right, shall.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So again, those are the exceptions. Those are the three that you have to take into account. You can see them over there. For imperatives, you use will, all right, because you don't have that question. For that one, you have to lend an auxiliary. Let's is actually not lending because these two words, these two expressions are related. They are kind of synonyms, right? But the suggestion with let's and shall are used in different forms of the sentence, right? Let's is for statements, right? Let's go to the party, let's play poker, and shall is stated as a question, right? Shall we play poker? And it has the same meaning as let's, right? And the one that I told you, I am your friend, aren't I? Because we cannot use am in negative here. And an option also, as you said, can be using the affirmative one more time, but this is the one that is advisable. All right, so that's it. Those are the exceptions and the detail about the auxiliary that I wanted to, well, all right, to practice with you. But that's it. Look, with that, here you have the everything negative questions, but we don't need to practice anything here because we know that. I don't know if you have questions or comments about this short review for tag questions. Let me know, please.
No, no questions. It was clear.
All right, good. Now, we're going to have then this time, at least we're going to see the next lesson, but just to show you. But before that, I would like to go back one more time. Before practicing once again with the speaking, I would like to go back to the essay that we were learning, all right, a few days ago, and we were working on the introduction, right? I would like to work on that introduction one more time with all those details that you were able to see. And if you remember with the suggestions that I gave you, right, that it was in general, because usually because of the number of words, you have to reduce, right, the number of statements that you are going to have in the introduction, for example, right? So the advisable, remember, it is going to be just 2 statements or 2 complete ideas per step, right? So you should have in total 6 complete ideas as a result of your introduction. All right, but again, remember that when I say complete ideas, they can be sentences, and sentences can be simple sentences, just with one subject, verb, and complement, right? They can be compound, that are 2 complete ideas divided, right, by a comma and a coordinating conjunction, right, a fanboy, or they can be complex sentences, again, 2 complete ideas that we call clauses, and these are joined by a subordinated conjunction, right? Like because, while, when, since, and so on. All right, so that can be just one big complete idea. So you can have that as one, but we need a total of 6. All right, a total of 6. So if we analyze, again, we're going to go to your idea once again. If you can do it with me, please. I'm going to the document. Okay, I'm here. So we're going to think of a different idea, all right, to try to write something new. And again, then if you analyze, you have here, this is the first step. It's just one idea, one sentence, let's say, plus a phrase that is clarifying something at the end with especially, right? So we have that. Then here, how many sentences do you have in this part, Matilde? What do you say? What's in blue?
How many sentences?
Yes, sentences. You know, it can be complete, it can be compound, or sorry, simple, compound, or complex. How many do you have? What do you say?
One.
Okay, we're going to change the
Two,
color. I cannot see very well.
3. 1, 2, 3, I think.
Okay, so let's see. So according to 10, and conflict will always, so yes, this is 1, right? So 1,
yeah.
Then you have, that might sound odd. No, this is 2. You have 2 here. Then, however, this is actually, no, this is going to be part of, no,
Yeah.
actually, yes, this is not going to be even compound. To make it a sentence, it has to be divided with a comma or with a subordinating conjunction. Okay, so these are 2 different sentences joined by a transition. Okay, so a conjunction or a connector connects the same sentence that can be complex or compound. All right, but a transition is going to connect 2 complete and different ideas in a grammatical way. Okay, so here we have 1, then you have 2, this is the second, then after, however, you have the third complete idea, then with if and this part you have the fourth one. Okay, so we have 4. And again, the only recommendation just to practice, because again, at the end is not that they are going to count or write the number of sentences that you got, but it's in order to try to look for a balance. So let's try to turn this into just 2, all right? 2 very important ideas that can be complex if you want, all right? So they are not going to be just 2 simple ideas. They can be complex, connected by commas, and we can find, all right, a way to state a similar idea to what you wanted to do here. But again, you're going to, of course, you're going to choose a different topic, but that's going to be the logic. Okay, let's try to turn the second step into just 2 sentences. And what about the last one? How many sentences do you have in the third step?
Okay. 3. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. So you have, therefore, this is right extra, and this is a complete idea, right? So yes, 1, then it's important to act yes, and yes, clarification 2, and yeah, I believe we got those 3. Okay, 3 complete ideas. So here we have 3, then here we have 4, right? 7, and here 8. Okay, 8. So again, my recommendation, let's try to reduce that just a little bit to 6 complete ideas in total, and let's try to have just 2 sentences. Again, they can be complex or compound per step. All right, let's see how it goes. In that way, again, we're going to try to look for a better balance and improving even more the introduction. So I don't know if you have questions. We're going to have, again, the 5 to 6 minutes to work on that introduction. Let me know, please, if you have questions or anything you want to add before giving you that time. Amen.
Yeah, I think it's clear. Yeah, I don't know what theme should I write now, but yeah, I'll think about something.
All right, don't worry. So I'm going to give you also perhaps an extra minute to think of that. Anything that comes to your mind. Remember that you, on the test, you're going to be given similarly to what we were doing, right? For the speaking part, you are to choose one option, right, between two that they are going to show you there, and you have to write, defend one of them. So imagine that you have anything over there and you have to make a decision very fast. All right, so anything that comes to your mind goes. I'm going to look for the clock. So good. And we're going to work with the stopwatch. So again, I'm ready to start with this. I don't know if you again have questions, or if you're ready, we can start now with anything that you have over there.
Okay, so should I continue right after this paragraph?
Yes, let's have it there. And let's start a new paragraph so that we can compare the introductions that you were working on and to see the differences and perhaps the balance that you're going to achieve little by little. All right, so yes, let's start a new paragraph just down below that one. And that's it. Let's have, please, again, let's have 6 to 7 minutes, and you tell me if you finished before, and we'll take a look at that.
Okay.
All right, good. Let's do it, please.
Okay. I really don't know what to write about.
I'm going to help you in a certain way, because look, I want you to see also this before you can continue. This is the presentation for the introduction. All right, so I'm going to mention one more time very briefly the steps that you need over there. All right, so remember, the first step, the first sentence or sentences, they are going to be your hook, an effective hook, right? Something that is interesting, that sets the tone of your whole essay, and it has to be clear, concise, and catchy. All right, and again, as I told you, it has to catch, all right, the reader's curiosity. It has to spark it, and you are going to mention the main topic in that first idea. All right, so you're going to say something interesting about technology, about education, about, I don't know, languages, about AI. Okay, that's going to be the first part, but it has to be in a certain way general. All right, because the more specific things are going to be mentioned either on the last part, on the thesis statement, or during the body paragraphs. All right, so that's step number one. Remember, one or two sentences. The next two possible sentences, remember the background. You can talk about these details, all right, historical details, geographical details, social context. You can also mention an outline of the debate you are addressing. So in a certain way, you can talk about the things that you will mention, all right, throughout your essay, or a summary of relevant theories if your essay is related to science, or interesting definitions that you have over there, and that is over here. All right, if you mention a word that you believe that needs to be clarified, also step number two can be to give that definition. Okay, but one more time, the recommendation here, if you read the last part, don't give too much detail. That's why, again, it's one or two sentences, all right? That's the limit, because the main ideas that you may want to say, they are going to be developed, right, in the body parts. And the last one, remember, this is your thesis statement. It has to be your statement, right? Something that you believe, but something that you can show with evidence, right? Anything that comes to your mind. But that's it. I believe that it is everything. Yes, in the last part, right? The goal is to clearly convey your own position in a debate, right? Or your central point about a topic. Okay, and that's very important. It has to be yours. Perhaps it's not related to a theory that has been proven yet. It doesn't matter. All right, it's something that you want to show to the reader, and you want to demonstrate that you are right. And step 4 is not a real step, it's just check and revise. And they always tell you, right, that sometimes the introduction can be written at the end of the essay. That's also valid. But it is better to have something there than to write your essay and then you make the changes that you believe are necessary. Right? Because perhaps you got to find evidence that is not directly related to your thesis statement. So you can change your thesis statement if at the end your essay turned out to be about something else, all right? And it was not your main idea at the beginning, but you can change that at the end. Okay, so this is something that you can take into account after you write your whole essay. But the main 3 steps are the ones that I already mentioned, all right? So anything that comes to your mind, in summary, it can be first, mention your general topic, not a specific, general topic in an interesting way. Give some background or extra information that helps understanding that topic or the importance of that topic. And finally, give your opinion. All right. But even though you're giving your opinion because you believe it is like that, it has to be stated in a formal way, right? Avoiding the usage of first person. So using impersonal pronouns as it, for example. Okay, so that's it. I don't know if you have a questions or anything so that you can start down. Let me know, please, Matthew.
Yeah, it's clear, and I have an idea about what to write. I hope it's
Okay, good.
too complicated, but yeah.
All right, don't
We'll
worry.
see.
Let's work on that then, please. We're restarting the stopwatch. So we'll check in 6 minutes.
Okay.
Right, we're going to check in 1 minute, please.
Okay.
All right, so let's see. Good. So it's a minute also. I'm here with you. Let's read what you got, please.
Okay. Royalty in the 21st century, is it really an outdated practice? If we think in our history, we will see the royalty system as something we should be ashamed of. However, if we investigate and see what's going on outside our frontiers, you will see that several royal families still exist in our era. But is it really as bad as it sounds? We could take some African countries examples where actually the royal families empower themselves after the invasion of countries like the United States, France, or Germany even. They are still standing and they are still trying to avoid external invaders. So it's really difficult to choose who the bad actor is.
All right, thank you very much. Now let's do something to, again, help us identify the boundaries that we have for each step, right? And again, this is going to be helpful in organizing everything. So let's please highlight what you believe is the first step, what you believe is the second step, and the last one.
Okay. So that's the first one, like the hooky, interesting, catchy sentence. Yeah.
All right, now let's see again the details. All right, now the idea here, you have two different stands, all right, on this one. And again, it's up to you. You can do some research on the idea of using questions in certain types of essay, right? Some of them are going to accept the usage of questions. Some of them are going to say that it is better just to give affirmative ideas to show a more, let's say, definite and strict position on one specific idea, right? But both are okay, but you have to decide, right, which one you're going to be following. And again, you have always different types of essays and different types of writing them. Okay, so I believe that then that's going to be up to you. In that way, all right, and regarding that aspect, I believe that this is an interesting, all right, and catchy way to start this one, royalty in the 21st century. And it's also made, and this is why I'm telling you this, because this is also a way to start an idea in a very, let's say, how can I call that way of writing for articles? No, not mediatic, but in a way that it's usually used for headlines, right? For that you have the phrase that is not necessarily a complete idea, but it states something in particular. All right, so that's also up to you. This is not going to be that academic to make it in phrases, but it is possible again to catch the reader's attention. All right, but once again, you have to see in the balance it is going to be all right, worth doing that, or if you prefer to stay in a more academic and formal way to avoid possible observations on that. All right, so for example here, if you want to be very, very academic, instead of that one, you will try to, perhaps it's not going to be as catchy and interesting as the way it is. That's why articles use it like that, right? But you can try to merge the two ideas that you got there into one that is a complete idea, right? For example, is royalty in the 21st century really an outdated practice? But it is also still very, right, fashionable in the way of a headline. But that's an alternative. All right, so that's the first thing I wanted to say about the first part. Then in the second one, just be careful with one thing. Remember, in English, you have something that we call collocations, right? And collocations are going to be the combination between verbs and particles or prepositions, right? And remember that we think we can only use two, right? Of and about. That's why the other ones are going to be incorrect. All right, so we think of our history or about our history. We will see the royalty systems. Good. Now, if you analyze, this is the first part because this is a complex sentence. How do we know? If usually in the correct order is in the middle, but this time is at the beginning. All right, but if it would be in the middle, you wouldn't use any commas. And that's what we call a subordinated conjunction and two clauses, the dependent and the independent clause. Okay, anytime you have that, it means that you have one complete sentence. But in this case, it's a complex sentence. So here we cannot use a comma. We have to use the two options that we have, right? Sorry, the semicolon or the period, right? Because you have a comma over there. Yes. So that one, why? Because actually after, however, you have another.
Sorry, could we give a bit of zoom?
Oh, yes, yes, of course, yes. I'm also not able to see everything very well. Yes, there you go. Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. So we need this. So let me put it also like that. Okay, so semicolon or period, right? Because here afterwards you have another complex idea sentence, because you have if, then you have the comma, and then you have the other clause. All right, so here you have two complete sentences. It is good, two complex sentences, but just this separation between the two of them. All right, here it worked to use thereby because it's also a transitional word, because you use it just as a parenthetical phrase, right? And it was not to introduce a new and complete idea, but here you're introducing a complex sentence that needs to be divided by a semicolon. All right, just that. And this one again, I'm going to mark it like that. I don't see it. Right, so here, just like that. Then now you have another question, and again, one more time, right? It is going to be up to you. And here you have another alternative just for punctuation, but it is correct. And we didn't see this yet. This rule says that if you have too many commas before, right, and with too many, you can say two or more. Okay, if you have two or more commas before and even more commas afterwards, you can use the fan voice like and, but, so with a semicolon. Okay, only if you believe that it can create confusion. But in this case, I don't believe it's creating confusion, but it's an alternative if you again want to be very formal and if you want to avoid perhaps anybody being confused by this comma. So you can use semicolon and but only again if you have commas before and sometimes after the coordinating conjunction. But okay, so that's just a suggestion. It is not a correction or something that you have to do. Then we could take some African countries examples, or perhaps here you can take them as examples. It is going to be better if you state it in that way, right? Where actually, so this is we call it an adjective clause, giving information about these countries with comma, where actually, and this, if you analyze, this is an adverb that is adding something extra. So once again, it's not necessary because you don't have to use commas with all adverbs that you have in the middle. But once again, if you want to put emphasis on the idea that this is extra, it can be with commas. All right, why? Because the royal families, that's the subject, and this is extra, and this is the first connector to that. After the invasion of the countries like United States, France, and this is the rule. Remember the rule of the comma for list of items? When you have more than 2 items, you have to use a comma before the coordinating, right? So it would be comma or Germany.
Yeah.
All right, just because of or actually, just to have it there and to remember, we're going to set the comma over there. Okay, good. They are still standing and they are still trying to avoid external invaders. All right, good. Now, if this so can be many things. Among them, it can be an introductory idea or adverb. So if it's introducing something as if it's showing consequence, it has to be with comma or semicolon. If it's introducing an idea like the beginning of something, it is going to be used with period before or semicolon and with a comma after so. But I believe this so you are using here, it is consequence of what you said here, right? So if it's consequence, you have to use it maximum with a semicolon, okay? A period is going to be too much for a so. Why? Because it has to be like that when it means as a consequence or as a result of something. Right? But if you feel that you want to set a period over there because you want to set a pause, then you can change so to a different possibility. Okay, so my 2 options are going to be the following. You can say comma so, or you can say semicolon so, all right, with no commas, or you can still keep the period over there, and instead of so, you can say thus, or therefore, or accordingly, all right, and or as a result, and many others that you have, all right, consequently, and so on and so forth. All right, so those are going to be the alternatives to keep the period, but changing the word to a transitional word, or to change the punctuation mark. Then you have to, it's really difficult to choose who the bad actor is. Okay, so great. Now again, it depends on the idea or the type of essay that you're writing. Now, if you're writing an argumentative essay, it is good, but you are not saying directly what your stand here is. You're saying, right, it's hard, it's difficult to choose who the bad actor is. But what's your opinion? What's something that you want to prove here? And again, we can always be neutral. We can show advantages and disadvantages for each thing. But what's your stand here? What do you say? Do you think it is an outdated practice? Do you think it is not? Do you think it's worth having this type of practice nowadays? Do you believe that it's justifiable? Do you believe that it is not a good idea, that we should change this? What is the thing that you want to show in the rest of your essay?
Yeah, the point was, like, that was for the question, it's not that outdated, and they're from the reason, and we shouldn't judge because it comes for certain regions, it comes for a reason. So,
All right.
yeah, basically that it's not like in favor or against, it has a reason, and it shouldn't be, what's this word? The money, what's the word in English? But yeah, shouldn't judge, you know, like the
All
money's
right.
out. It shouldn't be.
Okay. All right. So then again, one general recommendation just for this type of essay. Remember, you have a lot of types of essay.
Yeah.
But for this argumentative, my recommendation would be, for example, when you are mentioning, right, what happens in France, Germany, or this, you say, right, we could take some African countries as example. You can set that actually before, right? Why? Because that's going to be part of your background explaining this idea. And why is it not a good idea to set it here, at least in this structure that we have? Because this last part should be kept and should be used just to state your clear opinion on this matter. All right, so you can say after you developed the catchy first idea that can be remember even two sentences, after
Mm.
you give some background that can be about history, that can be about social context, and I believe that you are giving this here. All right, in a certain way, this can be related to a social context or history. So this can be part of the second step. Why? Because at the end, you're going to say something like this. So, thus, therefore, and you have to state, right, where you are standing. And you, again, it has to be clear because you afterwards you're going to give more examples that can be more abstract or with more examples related to that. But here it has to be clear what you want to defend or support throughout the rest of the idea. Okay, in a certain way it is, but it's kind of ambiguous. And also in one part of the writing that I'm going to show you, they say that at least for the introduction and for the conclusion, you have to be as concrete, right, and straightforward as possible so that we cannot get lost on what your main idea is going to be. All right, so once again, you say what you're saying in this part, still in the second part, but decide what you're going to say because once again, you have to be concise and you don't have to develop things that perhaps are better to develop in the body. And here, just one example, very short one, and then once again. And therefore, or accordingly, I believe that this practice, right, should still be, right, a part of our society or societies because they have an important background, or I don't know, right? But you have to state your very, very clear opinion on that. But that's it. I don't know if you have questions or comments or anything related to this feedback. Matilde, let me know, please.
No, I think it's clear. Yeah.
All
Got it.
right. Okay, good. Now, I wanted to use, at least I'm going to use just 2 extra minutes because we're going to practice. Let me show you with this. This is an example of an essay. It's not the same structure that we're practicing, but this is one example of a possible or right prompt or instruction or a idea that you're going to have as part of one of the tasks for the TOEFL. Okay, so for example, you're going to say, is it better to have broad knowledge of many academic subjects or right to specialize in one specific subject? That was the question. And here, of course, this person decided to state this. It is better to have broad knowledge of many academic subjects than to specialize in one specific subject. And the essay has to be just to defend that idea. All right. And in this case, if you read this, again, we don't have punctuation because here I want to practice punctuation and the identification of sentences because that's going to help us improve even more. All right, we're not going to do it now, but it's going to be an interesting practice to spot where we need the commas, the periods, the semicolons, the colons, the dashes. But I just want you to read the introduction, please, Nadia.
Okay, could we zoom it a little bit, please? Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Again, I don't see where it, there you go.
Yeah.
Now let me go up. All right.
Okay. To have broad knowledge of many academic subjects allows one to be better prepared when the need to solve a problem in any field is required, and it's very common. Furthermore, this wide variety of information makes a person grow intellectually and professionally. Accordingly, it's better to have broad knowledge of many academic subjects.
All right. Now again, right? It's not clear because of the lack of punctuation marks, but let's just pay attention to the last part. This is again a different structure, okay? Because it's more of a personal essay about one option that among the two or three or more that you were given. But the last part, it says, right? Accordingly, therefore, it is better, it's important. You can say that in many different ways to have broad knowledge of many academic subjects. Okay, so in this way, again, this is what we have to do even for the argumentative essay to state, right, what is the thing that we are going to develop, but you have to be sure that the thing that you're mentioning at the end of your introduction, it is the most important part of your entire essay. Okay, because that last part that says therefore, thus, as a result, is your stand, right? Your opinion, your belief, but you know that you have the sufficient evidence to support that idea. Okay, but once again, and that part actually, the introduction is just like the preparation for this part, okay, the thesis statement, because this is the only part and the main part that is going to define what you are going to develop, right, throughout the rest of your essay. That's why it has to be very clear, and it's very important that it's understandable and that it's not going to create any type of ambiguity one more time or misinterpretation, because then the rest of the idea can be again mixed up, and again, that's going to create confusion. But that's it. That's the last thing I wanted to show you. We're going to be practicing with this, all right, setting some punctuation marks and identifying different types of sentences to improve again the structure that we have for writing. Once again, I don't know if you have some final questions before finishing today. Let me know, please.
No, it's clear.
All right, good.
Yes, it's clear, yeah.
There you go. So let's finish here, please. Again, we have that one extra lesson that is part of this course, that is articles, that again, I don't see it necessary, but we're going to cover that tomorrow. Plus, again, we're going to keep working on these details, and that's it. I'm sharing the survey with you. You must be able to see it now. There you go. All right, and once again, thanks for being here, for practicing with me, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow.
Good night.
Bye.